woke up yesterday morning and I had no voice. I was like, oh, I can't let Pastor down. So I was praying, God, help my voice to come back. And I think it has some, but hopefully it will hold up. As was mentioned by someone, we are traveling a lot right now, so I would appreciate your prayers. We're leaving this week and we'll be in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, having a bunch of different meetings and things, but pray that I get well before that. I under the weather a little bit, but anyway, hopefully you'll be able to hear me and understand. Happy Father's Day to all of you that are fathers. The fact that God allows some of us to have the same title he has is pretty significant. To be called a father, and he's our heavenly Father, is like, whoa. But it's something we need to take seriously, that he would say, no, I'm going to allow you to be a father. And so I want to encourage you in that. I always, when I'm talking about family or marriage or anything, I always want to make it very clear, I'm still in the middle of this thing. So I'm not saying, oh, do what I did or any of that kind of stuff. I always try to impart wisdom from the Bible and other people I've met that were older than me that taught me things. And I just want to try to be a blessing by conveying those things. It's our lives individually, our families, everything around us is a work in progress. It's something you just, you can do the things, and then sometimes you still have a child go the wrong direction. Or you don't do the things and you reap what you've sown, but then you should take that testimony and tell others and warn them, hey, I didn't raise my kids like I should have. Please take that seriously, or whatever. Every God, when you're a Christian, everything he will use to your advantage. Every sin, if you repent of it and give it to him, every victory, every defeat, everything. So there's nothing wasted. So, but one time an old man, he asked me, and it was clever the way he said this. He said, Curtis, do you know how to tell if you have been a good parent or not? And I said, well, probably by how my kids come out. And he said, no, that's not how. And I said, sir, please tell me how. He goes, it's by how your grandkids come out. And I started thinking, I said, he's exactly right. Because you can sometimes play this game and it looks okay on the surface, but when those grandkids are being raised by your children, you'll know what you imparted to them. You'll know, did they listen? Did I teach? Did I instruct? Was I an example to them? Did I do all the things I was supposed to do or not? And you'll see it very clearly. And I realized that was 15 years ago, and I thought, okay. And another lesson in that comment by him is you're never done. Don't think, oh, my kids are raised. No. Always be imparting wisdom, encouragement, instruction. I don't care if your kids are 50. They need it. And you are still on this earth. One of the reasons God has allowed you to be here is to continue to impart the most valuable thing the Bible says that there is of anything, which is wisdom. It's above all else. There's nothing to be compared to it. If you could have a choice of, 10,000 bricks of gold, or God said, I will make you wise, only a fool would pick the gold. When God said, no, trust me, this has more value than all the wealth combined. Now, young people, every young person, look up at me just for a minute so I can see your pretty eyes. Look up at me. Young people, look up here. There's a man standing up here. He's not as interesting as what you're coloring, but I want to tell you, young people, listen to me real quick. If you do what I'm going to read to you out of the Bible says that you're supposed to do, I promise you, when you're my age, your life will be completely different and better than the child that says, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to do what the Bible says. Here's what it is right here. Ephesians 6:1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. That is so clear. Well, my parents, they're not as smart, or they're not. God didn't say, if your parents are who you think they should be, then obey them. God, in his genius, He knew the family was the training ground to learn the most fundamental thing you have to learn in life, to obey. You have to learn that or you will never go anywhere in life. What do they do when you join the military? They'll take raw, green, even rebellious young men, and in 6 weeks they turn them into a man. Why? Just absolute obedience. Whatever I say, it's sir, yes, sir. And if you don't, I'm going to smack you upside the head where you learn that is the only acceptable response is yes, sir. When my words are confirming to whoever's around and to myself, I'm obeying. I've just already said I'm going to do it. I need to do it. And that's why you need to respond like that to your parents so they know, yes, Daddy, I'll do that right now. And okay, she heard me, and she's going to go do it. And then you know, I already said I'm going to do it, so I better go do it. But that fundamental thing, if you do that, and then the next verse here is so key. After that, we're supposed to obey because it gives us the structure for life. Every person, no matter what your age is, you have to obey the rules. You have to obey the laws. You have to obey the things that are around us. But here, verse 2 says this, honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. God's saying, here's the first thing I'm telling you, and I'm giving you a promise with it. What is honoring to your parents? It's when you obey cheerfully. That's all it is. If your daddy tells you, go wash the dishes, and okay, and you have a bad attitude, did you obey? No, you didn't. Because part of the prerequisite for obedience is the cheerful, willing, submissive heart. Otherwise, you're not really obeying. You're just not wanting the spanking or whatever's going to happen, but you're not learning to be wise. You're just going, well, I want to avoid this consequence, so I'm going to do that. But when you honor them, it's, yes, sir, Daddy, I'd be happy to. And then listen to this. God tells you this. If you cheerfully obey, it will be well with thee. Do you understand the alternative? If you do not cheerfully obey your parents, and I'm talking to everybody here, I don't care what your age, there's no 18, you can do what you want. That's nonsense. Abraham's sons, they were, the mature men. And when he said, you need to do it, yes, sir. They're going to honor their father. He was a godly man. They knew he was giving them wise counsel. And so it's not some mystical thing. If your dad's 85, you need to be honoring him. Right now, where you say, God, I'm taking seriously what you said. I want it to go well with me. And I'm telling you, I've lived long enough to see it unfold. If you do not do that, I don't care what your age, and maybe you're in that season of still just sowing the seeds so you haven't reaped. If you have not honored your father, it will not go well with thee. And God of the universe will make sure that is the case. And that's sobering. It should be. A lot of people don't accept all the harvest they reap and, well, it was somebody else's fault. No, it's God saying, you did not do what I asked you to do. I said, obey and honor. And I promise you, if you do that, it's going to go well with thee. That is just so, right there, we can stop right there. That's the fundamentals of life. And here's why it's that way. Young people, listen, and everybody, but I want the young people, if one of you grabs a hold of this, your whole life will be different. God knew, he goes, I'm going to have a boot camp for kids to learn obedience, but it's going to be by two people that love them more than they can possibly even understand. In the whole reaping and sowing process, I'm going to speed up. So when that's, Daddy, I'm not going to do that, boom, you get the spank in that second. So they planted the seed of disobedience and instant harvest. Because life's not that way. And if you don't learn when there's an instant harvest, you're never going to learn when it's 3 months, 6 months, 10 years until all of a sudden you start reaping the whirlwind that you've sown for yourself of lies and deceit and doing what is wrong. It'll be devastating. And most of the time, even if you're wise enough to see that, then say, God, I'm sorry. You've already made your bed and you're going to lay in it. You're going to have these consequences. God will forgive it anytime, whatever, but he doesn't remove your consequences. And so that's why when you're young, if you're like, I'm just doing it. I'm doing it in this thing. Where you're by 18, 20, here, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Happy to. Anything else you need me to do, Daddy? What? And you're only doing that because God said to. It's not for your father. Us fathers do not deserve that, except the creator of the universe said, this is how I'm designing the system to raise the next generation. I'm going to give them 18, 20 years to practice, practice, practice. obeying. So when then you're a big man one day and you step out and you say, God, what would you have me to do? And he says, I want you to go to China as a missionary. He knows your only response will be, yes, sir. When do I leave? You're not going to, well, I don't want to go to China. That's scary. But you're not going to do all the arguing because you learned from that all the years growing up. That's not acceptable. You have to cheerfully obey so that you can obey God when you get older and reap all those benefits. And then fathers, here's a key thing he says, warning us. And he said, ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admiration of the Lord. Hollywood and TV, they glorify these just ridiculous fathers that are losers, that don't have self-control, aren't disciplined, aren't a good example, aren't gentle and kind and loving and know how to be respectful of ladies and elderly and children and whatever. And that's not it. We're supposed to be very kind. When you have real authority, you don't have to be abusive or verbally rough or anything. It's like when you're sharing the gospel with someone, you don't need to yell at them. You need this. You speak kindly to them. The words are what have the power. The truth you're speaking is what's powerful. And but fathers, always be careful of that. And if you're ever hasty where you have a rough word, again, the nice thing about that even is if you right then will go, son, I'm sorry for saying that like that. That was not kind. Would you forgive me? Then you've taken that and shown him that's what a man does when he does make a mistake. He's like, sorry, that was rude, and that was not valuing you like I do value I lost my discipline, self-control there. Can you hear me all right? Okay, sorry, my voice is kind of weak. We see from God the Father and God the Son, and men, those of you that do have a son, that's a very another special relationship God gave you that he and his son have, and they're a perfect example of our roles in that. Sons, when Jesus was on earth all the time, what did he say? I'm doing my Father's will. I'm not doing my will, I'm doing what my Father would have me to do. And what was the Father? I'm so pleased in my son because he's doing what's right. And there was this constant just love and fellowship and obedience and encouragement in that. And that's a great example to us. It's also interesting for others that when you get married and then have children, if God blesses you with children, everybody takes on your name. It's interesting. That's another thing that I think is right, and that culture has done that, and I'm sure it was from Christian influence because the Proverbs talks about a good name is rather to be chosen than choice silver and stuff. But young people, you have to remember that too, and old people, that's your Father's name. And if he's taken the time and the diligence to be faithful in all that he does, so it's a good name, you should be so grateful for that. And for you to do something to tear it down or to disparage it or something is just you're robbing from your own family and from yourself. When you have a good name, I remember I had a good name. My father was an honorable man, and people, oh, you're Dr. Bauer's son? Oh, I really like your dad. And I realized, wow, I'm getting this gift from everyone I meet. I need to not blow it and say, well, yeah, he's a nice man, but he's got this bum son or whatever. And so, but I realized that was a precious gift, and I've tried to give that to my children, where if anybody meets them, oh, you're Curtis Bauer's children? Oh, and hopefully it's a positive thing there that, oh, he's an honorable man. And I wanted to give them that so they can continue that on, but it has such great value to it. He didn't give me any time constraints. No, just a few key things here. I want to be a blessing to you. And these are fundamental lessons, whether you're a father or not, you mothers, you girls, you boys. It's wisdom. It benefits everyone that gets it. But words versus deeds. I know a lot of times when I was growing up, people would say, your kids aren't going to do what you say, they're going to do what you do. And there was some truth in that. And I thought, yeah, I mean, because your example is going to be more powerful than just words. Like a father telling a son, don't look at junk, and then the son catches the father looking at junk. You think your words mean anything? They mean nothing. But as I've gotten older, I've learned it's great to be a good example, absolutely. But you need to, instead of just words versus deeds, it needs to be words and deeds. We need to be clear in communicating why we're doing what we're doing. Son, here's how you wash a car. You always start at the top here and then come down so the dirty soap doesn't run on the stuff you've already washed. Whatever it is, you're carefully explaining. I've learned in life, sometimes if you just do it right, and then they do it on their own, they didn't really pay attention to what you were doing, and then they kind of do it their own way, like, how come you didn't wash it like I washed it or whatever it was? Oh, because I didn't know that was all purposeful what you were doing. So we need to have words and deeds, and this is the key to anything, where your words and your deeds match up. And Jesus told us this. He said, if you love me, if I ask any of you here, do you love Jesus? I hope and I bet every single one of you would say, yes. But he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And if we were to have a microscope and go, do you keep God's commandments? We would see then if the words were true or not. And we'd see, oh. And so we should always strive to have the words and the deeds, whether it's your marriage, telling your spouse, oh, I love you, but then trying to be loving in how you act. So it's the consistency. That is the power of words and deeds being the same. The things you say you believe, your actions would prove to anyone that's what he believes. That it's a light that no one can dispute with, no one can darken because it's so powerful. But it's what we need to strive to be in every part of our life. I was in the business world for a long time. I love business things. And one marketing guy once taught me the key to that, which is a similar principle to this. He goes, all you're doing when you have a business is you're making a promise to someone. Maybe you have an oil change place. So the promise you're making them, if you come in here, we will carefully change your oil and all the things we're supposed to, fill it with clean, good oil, and your car will be ready for another 5,000 miles. And he said, so all you're doing in any business, whatever it is, you're making a promise and then you're keeping a promise. You're making a promise and you're keeping a promise. And that's all life is. You swore to love and uphold and take care of each other, and then in your marriage, you do that. And if you always, the words are matching the actions, and whenever they don't, oh, so sorry, and then boom, you get right back to it. You will just be successful in everything that you do, whether it's marriage, family, pastors, community, whatever. When people mean what they say and then they do it and they're faithful to do that. And then, of course, our kids are in such a desperate need of good examples of that, where we're saying the right things and doing the right things. The world is telling them the opposite. It's telling them the wrong things, and it's living those out. And so they see that, but what they're doing is withholding from them the reality of the reaping of what they've sown. They just hold these stars up to the kids, but a lot of times they don't pay attention to when, oh, that famous person that had wealth, fame, money, mansions, Lamborghinis, everything, they took their own life last week. You're like, I've tried to always bring that up to my children anytime I've seen that, which is frequent, because I'm shocked how often you see that. Because that, young people, that expels the whole lie of the world. Those people got everything this world has to offer, and they were so miserable with it, they had to take their own life. They couldn't even go one more day. Nope, without pills, drugs, something, alcohol. I can't even endure another day. But that should be a lesson to all of us, because we're all tempted, because our flesh kind of loves the shiny, loves the new, to go, it's an illusion. It's not real. I need to go after gold, things that are of real value, which the Bible is endless examples through the book of Proverbs and everything about that, but it's so important. a few other verses here real quick, and then I'll wrap up. I don't know what time I'm supposed to. He said, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You thought you were going to have a Father's Day luncheon, but it's going to be a dinner. No. Okay, James 1:7 says this. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, within whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Fathers, we need to mimic that the best that we can. There's no variable. We're not changing on them. We're consistent in what we say, in what we do. And no shadow. We're not turning on them. We are just this rock that they can count on. Dad always does what he says. Dad has always, taught me what is right. Dad's always tried to model what is right. I heard an older man this week talking about his father on an interview, and his dad's in his late 80s, and just hearing him talk about his father is so encouraging to me. He goes, sometimes I butted heads with my dad when he was young, but now as I get older, this man was probably 55 or 60. I look back, he goes, I had the best dad ever. He just did what was right, period. He didn't care what anyone thought, anyone did. I thought, what a blessing. And this guy realized what a blessing he had in that. But another key verse, Genesis 18:19. This is how important a father, being a good father is. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. Why did he pick Abraham to be the father of his chosen people, who in the line of Christ Jesus would come? I know he will command his children and his household. Did he have any children when he said that? No. But he knew that's the kind of man that he was. He will be in charge and doing what is right. And the last one, verse I want to bring up, Deuteronomy 6:7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. There's 4 different times a day we need to be speaking wisdom and biblical principles to our children. You need to do that, where it's just a constant thing. The mealtime, you're driving in the car. I remember one time driving in the car, and there was all these guys picking up trash in pink pajamas along the highway. And my boys, I have 6 boys, they were all little. And they go, why are those boys wearing pink pajamas and picking up trash? And I thought, wow, this is a perfect opportunity. I said, because they said, I will not obey anyone. And so now they're told exactly what they will do. And they'll wear pink pajamas and go pick up trash along the highway with a man with a gun watching them. And they'll go back and be locked in their cage and be given to eat exactly whatever the people want to give them. They will have no choices in anything, because they said, I will not obey. That's where it ends, in a cage. Please learn to obey. It is so important. Of course, the whole book of Proverbs, which is my favorite, is a father talking to his son. Son, give me thy ear, let thine eye observe my ways. He's saying, please, look, please. And you young people, you have to know that in your parents' love for you, they're not going to withhold any good thing from you, just like God doesn't. But they're also never going to give you bad advice to, it would have been really fun, but I'm going to do my own thing instead. It's just, they would never do that. And you won't understand that till you're a father one day. But when you are, you'll realize, what was I thinking to think I knew better than Dad? That I've been around more. He's kind of old-fashioned. He doesn't get it. Anyone older than you gets so much more than you will ever understand, because we're all observing this life go by. All right, a few of the key, and this is for all of us, but I was looking up these statistics. on father. This is how important a father is. This is our government statistics. And this isn't talking about a godly, hardworking, honorable Christian man. This is just talking about there's a dad in the home. Maybe he watches TV and drinks all day, but he's in the home. Just him being there. Listen to what a difference it makes. It's unbelievable. A child that does not have a father in the home. They can have the best mom in the world, but does not have a father. They're 5 times more likely to live in poverty. They're 9 times more likely to drop out of school. They're 20 times more likely to go to prison. 20 times. About 4% of people that have a father go to prison sometime in their life. 80% of people that do not have a father in the home go to prison. Real successful. Our family's been into the Alabama prisons. They open them up each year, and we've gone in and sung and talked to the men, and it's so sobering. But when you ask them, men, how many of you had a good, loving father in your life? 300 men there, rarely a hand goes up. And I say, that's not your fault. Whatever you did to get here, yeah, you deserve that. But God intended you to have a father that said, enough, stop, don't do that. Be careful here, watch out for this woman. Do all these things that we're supposed to do. What are some of those things? As I observe around me, I see so few of these things. But moderation. A man has to be under control. He needs to practice moderation in everything so his kids see. And his dad's there to say, son, you already had 3 scoops of ice cream, no more. Where he learns there's limits, there's boundaries, there's the right way of doing things. If you don't learn moderation, your whole life is going to be this roller coaster of excesses and everything else. Proportion, I see that missing more than anything. What's proportion? It's knowing how to engage whatever you're doing. If you're playing a basketball game with a bunch of little kids, you don't play like it's the NBA Finals because you might hurt one of them. You realize the winning's not important. It's to play with good sportsmanship because I want to be an example to them. It's to make sure they have some fun of shooting the ball, so I'm not going to come up and snuff it out of their face every time or whatever it is. It's proportion. You analyze things. I've seen so many young men, they'll be maybe just wrestling a friend and they're like wrestling almost to hurt them. I'm like, they didn't learn proportion. This isn't the Olympics. That's your friend. Be careful. You're going to hurt him because you're bigger than him or whatever. Where it's just this sense of knowing the limits and what's appropriate. When is it all the way? When is it no? It's 10%, it's 20%. When is it important to lose when I'm playing? This little kid needs to have won something to feel good about it. So I'm going to purposely lose this game when I'm playing with them because I want to build them up a little bit and have the joy of seeing them beat daddy or whatever where they're like, well, I beat you. Boy, you sure did a great job. But that's proportion, and we don't have it. Balance, toughness, discipline. Does daddy go to bed and get up early and try to use his time wisely? Is he disciplined? Does he have character? Is he gentle? The Hollywood vision of a man, this rough, rude, disgusting, that's not what we're after. We're for the strong, and like a Jesus, he was a big, strong man, obviously. When he threw the money changers out of the temple, they ran. They didn't say, come up and start fighting him. Hey, that's our tables and our money. They ran. But he knew his whole life, no, it's gentleness and love. But at that moment, he knew, now it's time to be a man and to step up and to make these people pay for what they have done to my father's house. And it was appropriate then. And sometimes a man might have to do that in his life. It's time to step up. I don't care what the cost now. I'm all in to protect my family or whatever, and I've got to do it, and I've got to do it right. But how to treat ladies, children, elderly, just being a godly man is so important. All right, in closing, last thing. Lunch isn't going to burn after all. Proverbs 22:6 says this, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I know any size crowd of any amount, some of you have kids that probably went the wrong way, and you tried. Don't ever give up on them. but you pray sincerely, you're on your knees, God, you do whatever you have to do to bring them back to you. Whatever it is. There's no blessing from just having people on this earth living, existing, that are not glorifying God. But don't ever give up, especially if you tried to train them up in the way they should go. But that just happens because people do have a free will. I'm going to end with this poem that is probably the best poem to express some of the things I've talked about here, about being someone that has character, someone that has wisdom, someone that just wants to be pleasing to the Lord. Rudyard Kipling, you've probably heard that name. He was a famous writer 100 plus years ago. He's one of the few people I know of famous people, well-known. He was one of the most well-known writers in the world. He actually, when God gave him a son, he gave it all he got, everything he had. I want a son that is honorable. It's tough because he wrote this poem for his son's 12th birthday for him. And he had raised him just right. His son was so honorable. When he was 17, World War I was starting. He said, Daddy, I need to go fight for our country. And he tried to go sign up, and they wouldn't take him because he had poor eyesight. So Rudyard Kipling, being famous, used his leverage to get him accepted in there. And so he went in because he knew, no, my son wants to be a man and defend Britain from the enemy. And it was right after boot camp, he went over there, and it was literally almost the first day of the first battle, he was killed. His whole life had been into this boy, John, and he was killed. Sorry. But he spent the rest of his life looking for his body. He always hoped that maybe he was taken prisoner of war because I'm famous and they're going to keep him or something. He looked all over the graveyards of the world and never could find him. But here's a poem he wrote for this boy, but he taught his boy these things. And as fathers, we need to teach our boys these things. These are the qualities that you have to be a man. Sorry. It's called If. You've probably heard of it, but listen to this. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or be lied about and don't deal in lies, or be hated but don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise, don't be a pretender. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, and if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. If you want to be a man, read the book of Proverbs and practice what King Solomon told his son to do. There's no great men that are not wise men. And God has his purposes in everything that he does. We're just to be faithful one day at a time, to do the very best we can. And when we don't succeed in doing that, we ask for forgiveness and we start fresh the next day, trying to glorify him in everything that we do, one day at a time, knowing that he will be faithful. And but I'm thankful to be a father, and I know you fathers are too. It's probably the greatest gift someone can be given. Anyway, you want me to close in prayer, or do you want to come? Okay. Thank you so much.